without Detective Suter's testimony. So here you go. Didn't need him. He was just icing on the cake. So I just wanted to, mention this kind of stuff because in all this foreseeing of conspiracy theory out here, conspiracy theory to the left and right, we have to consider all of the scenarios, but yet let's look at the plausible scenarios, the factual scenarios. And as I'm talking to you this evening, I'm giving you a lot of stuff based upon facts and circumstances. Why Detective Suter could have easily taken his own life. We have more motive for that than anything else. Okay? So, we'll continue on here. There's a national profile. Now, I don't do it, but there's a national profile that's out there about officers. They looked at the past 10 or 15 years about suicides of police officers. And what's common? There's a common thread that runs through a lot of these suicides. So it's a profile. They said the average officer that takes his life has 17 years on the police department. Suter had 18. They say that handgun is used. Handgun found at the scene. They say that most of them are point blank range. We already confirmed that through the medical examiner's office. They say legal issues coming up, potential legal issues. Well, we know that because he was requested to come in to give his testimony in front of the grand jury. Again, I'm running down the checklist. This is the profile of that was created by people in the industry who study suicide, police officers. You won't believe this. They say the national average is 42 years. Suter was 43. They say have been divorced. Suter was divorced. They also say prior military. Suter prior military. Okay, now I want to go back to the scene, the site of the murder. Okay, and let's look at again what was found and what wasn't found. Okay, and we'll start off with the fact that 3 rounds were fired. We never found the other 2. I said to you before, what hitman doesn't bring a weapon to cause the murder to happen? Again, I didn't finish my story. If it were me, and if I had to kill somebody because they were coming to court, first of all, I'm not going to wait till the day before. That's too suspicious. I'm not going to wait till the day before somebody's testifying and kill them. I'm going to try to get them killed long before then, because I don't know how many opportunities I may have to do it. And that's what, again, with the word I just used, opportunity. Crime is about opportunity, always. Is there an opportunity for me to do something? Is there an opportunity for me to break the law? Whether it's created externally or internally. Okay? So, I'm not going to run the risk of saying, okay, let me follow this guy. Let me find out what time he's going to go up into a specific area and lay in wait for him first, and then let him see me 20 minutes earlier, and then kill him when I see him with his weapon. Well, suppose I don't get his weapon. Suppose I get shot. Then all of that, me planning and plotting to kill the detective before he testifies against me, just didn't work. At least if I tried a couple of times prior to him going to trial, that week before, a month before, I could have worked all the kinks out to make it happen. No prints found on the gun. That's not unusual. But when we look at the totality and, again, the collective evidence here, one has to question that. Struggle going on, no prints on the gun? 3 shots are fired? Nothing? No DNA on Suter's clothes. Police department said there was a struggle. Pretty violent struggle. What are they basing that on? What are they basing that on? His tie was disarray. His clothes had dirt on them. We haven't been told. What are they basing the fact that it was a struggle? We don't really know that. No DNA found on Suter at all. Did he see someone or not? Did his partner see someone or not? No witnesses to see the struggle. Now, I will tell you that the commission that investigated suicides and some of the corruption cases I talked about, they talked about how generally suicide is a very private matter, meaning that a lot of suicides will happen when people aren't around in their homes, happen in garages, in cars, in isolated areas. Well, the area between the two houses were what? They were isolated area. Isolated. I've taken you there through, videos I've posted. So you saw the area. It's an isolated area. It's something that can happen there in a couple of seconds and be done and over with. Virtually no one could see it. And that's kind of what happened. 3 shell casings were found. Again, next to Suter. And I question as to what all evidence was there. In some of the pictures that we see Detective Suter in some of the media reels of him, we see him wearing glasses. But there's no mention of whether or not he wore glasses the night he was shot and killed. And that would be important to know. I wear glasses. And I know sometimes if my daughter might grab them, there's fingerprints on them. So I had to question that we haven't heard whether or not there was glasses at the crime scene. Detective Suter, 17 years on the police department, 18 years on the police department, worked in the Western District. Those of you not from Baltimore, Maryland, I worked in the Western doing my field training over there many years ago. I'm quite familiar with it. Had a couple drug cases over there. So I'm quite familiar with the area. I wasn't quite familiar with necessarily that little cubbyhole area on Bennett Place and Schroeder Street. I had never seen that before. So I suspect that those houses were probably torn down, maybe in the late 90s, early 2000s. But Detective Suter worked this area for a number of years. Detective Suter had homicides he was investigating up that area. He was quite familiar with where that particular cubbyhole would be at. He's quite familiar with the isolated areas up and around Bennett Place. So it's not too far-fetched to believe that he, in fact, decided that if I had to take my life, that would be a good place. Okay? So again, I'm just reviewing. I have in my hand here where he was divorced in 2003. And then there was a case that dealt with the child support modifications. That was in 2009 and 2010. Okay. And again, it had to deal with, the reduction of his child support. Again, he has certainly more motive than anyone at the time he's working with in terms of someone who would want to take money, if given the opportunity, certainly to take care of 5 children. I'm not saying that you have to steal to take care of 5 children. I'm just saying that that's a motive. For those folks who don't understand what motive is, you can read up the legal term of motive and find out what types of motives there are. Finances is typically the #1 motive in just about every crime that deals with robbery, murder. It's always going to be some money, some type of transaction, drug cases where money's taken exchanged. So police officers only making a certain amount of money. I don't know how much his wife was making, but I do know that to take care of 5 children, I found it hard to take care of my 2 children. So I'm just saying that the motivation is there. Let's see. What else did I want to cover here? Okay. So when I look back to look at the corruption suicides, there were like 8 in the past 15, 20 years, 8 suicides that dealt with corruption. By at least, even though, let's say, for instance, in one corruption case, it might be 30 officers that get arrested. In another one, it might be 25 officers that get arrested. Generally speaking, one officer out of that bunch takes his own life because they can't face what they've been involved with. They don't want to have to go and testify against other officers if they themselves aren't the focus of a case. And so I had to rethink my position some 90-some days later, when we went, as opposed to when it first came up, and I said, I don't believe this officer would have taken his life. He knew he had 5 children. Why would he leave a wife and 5 children? Well, I can tell you that if you read up on suicides and how they occur, you probably would say the same thing. That, okay, now that I've read up on suicides and why and how they happen, oftentimes the family comes last. Not unless there's a suicide note that's written, then you can tell that person is, cares about the family more so than wanting to really take their life, but they still take their life anyway. In this case here, we know there was no suicide note left. All right. Again, I just think that Detective Suter was overwhelmed with the position that he found himself in. Like many of these suicides, and I have them here listed on this piece of paper here, that they found themselves in cases, and they end up taking their own life. Well, guys, I'm concluded. I thought I'd be longer than looks like 10, 11 minutes here in this case. However, I want to thank you for paying attention. I didn't put anything out for the past few days because I was working on this and some other stuff, and I didn't want to stay focused on the school shootings because that's still a developing story in terms of what the federal government's going to do, what states are going to do. Those stories are still developing. The story in reference to the police chief and his men down in Florida, what they did not do and why they did not respond, that's still controversial. We do know that just from the reports that we're getting, that they in fact had an obligation. See, police officers, if it's written in the policy and general orders, they have an obligation to respond, period. Okay, and in this case here, that would be considered to be what they call nonfeasance of office, where you don't do your job, but yet you have an obligation to do your job. And because you didn't do it, you could have prevented the loss of life and the amount of life lost had you acted, and since you're obligated to take action, as a police officer in your official capacity. And that's how it reads. There's other couple, you've probably heard of malfeasance. You've heard of misfeasance. Typically, misfeasance deals with let's say negligence. It deals misfeasance if you make mistakes. If you make errors in doing your job in an official capacity, then that's considered to be misfeasance. When you deal with malfeasance, it's going to do more with violating the law as well as morality. Okay, and all of that could be considered falls under malfeasance of office. So when officers break the law, or public officials, mayor, who are governors, whoever in the public light break a law, statutory law, local law, federal law, that's considered malfeasance in office. Okay, because there's a law broken and criminal charges may be, forthcoming behind that. So I just want to give you the kind of stuff from dealing with police corruption. Some of the terms that you'll hear out there in the media, but you really need to, quickly go and research, and you'll come up with some of the same things I've come up with. But that's my take on this particular case at this time. Who knows? I might change my mind. But right now, I put so much work into all the theories that the only theory at this point that has more motive than any of the rest of the theories is the suicide theory. And so I'm going to stay on that and keep developing that. And I want to thank you guys for spending time with me this evening. I'll try to put out some more stuff this week. My name is Mike McCormick. I'm with Advanced Criminology here in Owens Mills, Maryland. Thank you.